Welcome to Basic Brewing Radio for Thursday, December 28th, 2006. I'm James Spencer. Here at Basic Brewing Radio, we're all about home brewing. With this week, Steve Wilkes, Andy Sparks, and I are lucky to be included in an experiment with Belgian sugars conducted by home brewer Michael Tonsmeire. You may remember Mike from his American hop experiment in a past episode. Mike sent us 6 beers this time, each brewed from a small batch using different sugars. It was a very tasty and very educational experience. This is the last Basic Brewing Radio episode of 2006. I want to take a moment to thank everybody who spent time with us in interviews over the past year. I also want to thank all of you out there listening who have stuck with us. It's a blast to produce the show and the video podcast as well, and I'm honored and flattered that you take time to listen and take time to write in as well. And, of course, thanks very much to everyone who supported our work with a purchase from our shop or from our vendor partners across the country. I'm going to try to keep my comments short before the meat of the episode this week because we ran a little long in sampling the wonderful beers. Thanks to everyone who sent in comments on the home brewer versus craft brewer topic and on the American all-grain versus extract culture. I'm planning to include those responses in next week's show, or the week after that if I decide to take the week off. My boys are home from school, and I just might decide to spend more time with them. Another reason to keep my comments short this week. Just a few notes from the mailbag. Bill from Windham, Vermont says, I wanted to get back to you about my test with brewing an amber ale baker's malt extract instead of brewer's extract. It has been 5 weeks, and I've started harvesting. I did not use a secondary. Primary for 3 weeks, then bottle for 2 more. Bill says, may I say I'm delighted with the results, as is my better half. There are no off flavors or strange tastes, just good, smooth homebrew. It will probably get better over the next few weeks, but I feel good about giving some to neighbors for Christmas. So there you go. That may be worth a small batch experiment right there. Bill made beer from baker's extract, and he says it turned out pretty good. So there you go. Something else to think about. Francisco writes in with what I think is our first email from Portugal. He says, I've just seen your last video podcast about the Grand Mead experience, and you were talking about adding potassium sorbate to your mead. Francisco says, please take caution on using sorbate. In winemaking, sorbate is usually associated with geranium off flavors. It is a widely used preservative in the soda pop industry, but SO2, in other words, Campton tablets, is the most praised preservative on wine. Well, thanks for the note, Francisco. For those of you who haven't seen this week's video podcast, Steve and I added potassium sorbate to our blood orange mead to kill the yeast in preparation for adding more honey to sweeten it. It was a bit dry. We only used, I think, a quarter teaspoon in that 3/4 of a gallon, I think it is, of the mead. And we didn't detect any geranium off flavors. But, you know, it could have been because of the strong flavors of the mead itself. So I appreciate the advice, Francisco. Eric from St. Petersburg, Florida writes, I just wanted to share another way to remove chemicals from your water source that may be more efficient for all-grain brewers. I use an RV water filter that can be purchased at Walmart or an RV supply store. They attach right to the spigot for your garden hose, and then you can attach a hose to it. Eric says it is rated for a whole season, which mine rates at up to 15,000 gallons. I think that would work for me for a year. Eric says it's a very dense activated charcoal filter with an antibacterial core. I've been using these for several years and have had great success with them. I've had dozens of beers judged by BJCP-sanctioned panels and never have one come back as listing chlorine as a flaw. So very nice. Appreciate that, Eric. Sounds like a lot more efficient than my current setup of the spigot-mounted filter in my sink. So thanks a lot. Good advice. Okay, now before we get to the experiment, I want to remind you again of the 2007 Basic Brewing Brewer's Logbook for sale now on basicbrewing.com. We've got some good response, and I appreciate that, and I'm looking forward to hearing comments from those who have picked them up. And I hope they'll make your brew day more fun and productive and efficient. And I can't wait to break mine in on the first brew of the year in 2007. This was a fun show for us to do this week. Andy and Steve joined me for Mike's hop experiment a few months back, and so they were very excited about trying these Belgian beers that he whipped up. So let's go to the studio for the tasting of Michael Tonsmeire's Belgian sugar experiment. Well, Mike Tonsmeire, welcome again to Basic Brewing Radio.
Thanks for having me on again, James.
And joining us are the Tim Conways of our Carol Burnett, Steve Wilkes.
Oh, I'm playing Tim Conway here, moving a little slow.
And Andy Sparks.
Hey, James. Great to be here again.
And if you understand that joke, then you're as old as we are.
Actually, I thought it was Vicki Lawrence.
Tim Conway was the favorite regular
that
always came on the show. And then when he came on as a regular, not just a visitor, he wasn't as funny.
Yeah, so. You're right about that.
So anyway, we're here to talk about Belgians and Mike's.
Conway wasn't Belgian.
Well,
the beer.
He wished he were.
Okay.
Mike is here to talk about his Belgian experiment, and he sent 6 beers to us for the experiment and an extra for us to try afterwards. So,
yum.
We're becoming bigger and bigger Mike Tonsmeire fans all the time.
Mm-hmm. So
tell us, Mike, about the experiment and what you were testing and how you went about doing it.
Sure. This was done, I believe, in May or July of this year. So a couple months ago, so these beers have been sitting around getting better for a while. And my thought was that this new Belgian candy syrup came out on the market, about $8 a bottle. I wanted to see if it was really worth my money or if I could get by using either a homemade alternative or maybe an unrefined sugar or any number of other things that would be less money. And so I took a pretty simple base recipe. It's just Pilsner malt, a little bit of aromatic, and a little bit of Vienna. And all the beers have a little bit of cane sugar in them because, for whatever reason, Belgians normally have some dark sugar and some plain white, cheap cane sugar. And I just boiled it as I normally would, threw in some Hallertau at 90 minutes and then a little bit near the end of the boil, and then chilled the whole thing just like normal. Put it all 6 batches, evenly divided into 6 containers, and then boiled up a little bit of each of these sugars and add them to each batch. The first one was plain old white cane sugar. The next one was amber candy rocks, the sort of what people in America have been using in their Belgian beers for a long time. The next one is muscovado sugar, which is an unrefined sugar. It's sort of like a fancy brown sugar, I guess you could say. And the next 2 are both these new products that have come on the market for candy sugar. The first is a soft candy sugar. It's what's apparently used by the monks at Roquefort, and then the syrup version, which is used by a lot of Belgian brewers. And the last one was a homemade caramel I made using a method from Brew Like a Monk, I believe by way of Randy Mosher, caramelizing just plain old Caro corn syrup with a little bit of diammonium phosphate, which brewers often use as a yeast nutrient. And so they were all fermented the same, except for the white sugar, which ended up being left out of my fermentation fridge for lack of room. So that one got a little bit hotter, and it was in a bigger carboy, so it probably got a little more oxygen. So that one was a little mishandled. So I don't mean, if we end up not liking that one, it's not a condemnation of using cane sugar in beer. And then, so they've been sitting in bottles now for about 4 months, getting ready to be drank.
And I think we're going to start off with the table sugar one, which you've labeled as white. And Steve, you can go ahead and crack it open and and you did it right near the microphone, and I'm glad it didn't blow up right into the mic.
Blow
up. And while he's pouring, you mentioned Brew Like a Monk, or as someone pointed out to me, the acronym is BLAM, Brew Like a Monk. Stan Hieronymus in BLAM basically said that for a lot of these specialty sugars that we see, you could substitute table sugar and get pretty much the same effect. Is that what you remember from that book, Mike?
Yes, no, and certainly the lighter color ones. I think we'll see that when we open the amber rocks. I think the color is almost exactly the same. The taste is pretty similar to the white sugar. As those darker sugars, and it's actually it'll be really shocking how different the color is from. I think each batch only got about 4 ounces of the chosen sugar in it. So.
Huh. Well, we're tasting the table sugar one, and I'm detecting some cidery notes.
Yeah.
Yeah, some kind of, I almost taste like green apple and some other kind of, those kind of fruit.
Yeah.
Yeah, green apple was a good word for that.
And it's fairly hot as far as maybe the alcohol presence is concerned.
Yeah, no, I really think that's the higher ferment temperature that one went under. The other ones were all held under 66 degrees, while for the most of the ferment, well, that one was more like 74 or 75.
So what would be the percentage per pound of sugar in the grain bill, or per sugar versus the grain?
About 16%. So all of them had about 6% cane sugar right off the bat in the main wort, and then about 10% of whatever the specialty sugar was. It would then have been added sort of after a very short boil right to the fermenter.
Steve, what do you think?
Well, it's just got a sweetness that I'm. I won't say I dislike the beer, but it's not something I would choose to drink a lot of. And I guess it's just that plain, just the white sugar, you know. So.
Well, Michael, this is not your best effort. I'm sorry. But it's interesting. It's I'm looking forward to seeing how the difference to the next one and after that, the rock candy.
It has kind of there's kind of a bitterness at the end of it so it goes into my mouth sweet. It tastes sweet when I drink it, and then there's kind of a bitterness at the end that I'm not crazy about.
There's definitely nothing wrong with the beer there. I don't taste any off flavors or anything like that. But I'm looking forward to moving on.
So unexceptional, I guess, would
I'd certainly agree.
Okay.
And just sort of as a side note, all of these started right around 1060, and all of them but one ended at 1009.
Oh wow!
And we'll talk about the exception when we get there.
Okay. Well, why don't we pause for a moment, and what should we move on to next, Mike?
I guess why don't we go with the rock one?
Okay.
That's the most similar to the white.
All right.
Okay, I'll go get it.
All right. Okay, now we're moving on to the rock amber candy sugar.
Yep. and this one was actually, one of the big disadvantages of the rock candy sugar was it was a real pain to deal with because I had to leave it in the saucepan for a while to get those rocks to melt down. Whereas most of the other ones, either a syrup or a crystallized sugar melted almost instantly.
And Steve is pouring. And this is a couple of shades darker than the first one, I'd say, maybe?
Yes, no, but certainly not much.
No, just a little bit.
Sort of a golden yellow as opposed to a pale yellow.
Yeah, and I guess we should have been describing the color of the first one. The first one was very pale.
Yeah, no, it's all. I want to have no dark grains in there, even though you might in a Belgian that you were doing, but just for the sake of knowing exactly where the flavors were coming from.
Now this one, I like the aroma of this one quite a bit more.
Much softer.
Yeah. I just like the beer all the way around a lot more.
Now
that's good. I could definitely spend an evening with this.
Yeah,
much crisper.
Yeah, it doesn't have nearly the kind of cidery notes that I was detecting earlier.
I think this really shows that, often people say, ferment your Belgians really hot, and it's not really true. You need to start them nice and cold so you don't get those fusel alcohols and those cidery flavors.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So Michael, tell me.
Very cool, and then I think I heated up to about low 70s after 2 or 3 days.
Okay, so you started at 66 degrees. Is that what I heard?
Yep, and in the refrigerator at 66, and I think I turned after 3 days. I turned the temperature control off and just let it go up as high as it wanted to.
Yeah, and we've heard that advice from Stan Hieronymus and also Adam Avery as well. Start off your fermentation cool, and then after a day or so, let it go and let nature take its course.
Yeah, and that's really key with these. I used White Labs 530, which is the strain that Westmalle uses and shares with Westvleteren and Ockel. So half the Trappists out there use it. Can't be too bad.
Yeah, it has that classic that Belgian character in the nose and the aroma. You can really pick it up. This is an excellent example here. You did a great job.
Yeah, this is really lovely. I get a little lemon, too, that's really, really nice. I don't know if you guys do or not, but I like this beer a lot.
And you'd certainly call it, I'm not even clear what style this would fit into, if it would be, a weak triple or it would be a strong single or...
Yeah, it's somewhere maybe between a golden ale and a triple, maybe.
Yeah.
The only thing,
but it's much lower alcohol than that. It's only about 6.2 or something.
Well, the only thing that I would pick on is I wish it were a little more carbonated, maybe. And I don't know.
Yes, no. This is the big disadvantage of doing this is I was bottle priming with just a half teaspoon of sugar, and for a Belgian I probably should have gone higher.
Yeah, the Belgian styles are typically higher in carbonation than the average, say, American beer.
Certainly.
Unless you're talking about some of the domestic beers that are very effervescent.
The typical good American beer. How about that? Well, that one went way too fast.
Yeah, our glasses are empty.
That's a good sign.
That's a good sign.
So what's next, Mike?
Why don't we move on to the Muscovado? It's probably the next lightest, and it's got some interesting flavors to it.
Okay, the MUS, Andy.
Okay.
Andy's the sommelier, the beer server. And we'll be right back.
How appropriate.
Okay, we're going, and Steve has jumped the gun, and he's pre-opened, premature cracking of the bottle. And this one I can tell has more carbonation already. I can tell it's got more of a head.
My bottle did too, and I'm not sure if for what reason this one just kept fermenting a little longer in the bottle or something.
Huh.
Maybe unrefined sugar, the yeast take a little bit longer to deal with it.
Yeah, and tell us about Muscovado sugar. I'm not familiar with it myself. I'm a table sugar guy myself.
Many people use turbinado, which is sort of one of the lighter grades. This is, I guess, somewhere in between sort of a light turbinado and some of the thicker, there's a Barbados and a couple more that are really rummy. And this one is sort of, I'd call it a medium refined. So it's just, sort of, it's I believe from an English company, and it's one of their sugars that they suggest for general sort of brown sugar baking purposes.
So, how would you describe the color? Is it like a little half a shade darker than what the previous one was?
Yeah, no, but still sort of a golden yellow. Definitely not anywhere near brown.
Yeah, it's definitely not like a double color.
Yeah.
This one seems pretty hazy compared to the last one. I don't know whether that was just the bottle getting shaken up or what. Yeah,
the body seems bigger on this one, and I don't know if that's the carbonation.
Yeah.
Well, I taste a little more caramel notes in this one. Kind of a slight toffiness, and you're right about the body. It does seem thicker, a little more mouthfeel, which would kind of come with some more toffee notes because that means there's some stuff that's not getting fermented that's left over. But
good point. I don't get as much of a nose on this one as the previous two.
Yeah. It seems to me to be slightly more residual sweetness, which would come with additional body, I think.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit sweeter. This would be great with
yummy.
dessert. Sweet potato pie.
Oh,
Potato pie and a glass of this.
Oh, yeah.
Now you're talking.
Yeah, this seems to be just a more substantial beer.
I believe it had just about the same finishing gravity as all the other ones.
Really?
Yeah, no, this is actually, this one was 1008, and a couple of the other ones were 1009, so this was actually on the low end of finishing gravities.
Huh.
Well, maybe we're just cracked.
Cracked sugar. Well, could it be the carbonation that's lending the feeling of more of a substantial beer?
You'd think that higher carbonation would actually make it seem lighter.
I would think.
I don't know.
What are you doing? Steve's cleaning out his pockets.
Well, I'm like Ringo. I've got a hole in me pocket.
Wow.
This is a very nice beer.
Yeah, this is my favorite so far.
And the flavors certainly seem appropriate to a Belgian. A little bit of rumminess, a little bit of that dark something. This would certainly be a good one to use, as a supporting sugar.
And I'm picking up some spice on this one as well.
This is my aftershave.
Oh, I'm sorry. Old Spice.
No, I am too. Yeah.
Yeah, obviously there's no spice in this beer.
No, just the yeast.
And I noticed that in the Belgian blonde that I did this past summer and the triple that I did, people asked me, "Hey, what spice did you put in there?" And there was no spice, and it was all from the yeast.
Yeah.
And it was White Lab's the Trappist, the 500, I think. So pretty good.
Yeah.
Very good. What next?
I guess let's move on to the soft candy sugar. This is a product that's centrifuged out of the dark candy syrup before it's bottled.
Huh.
This is sort of a secondary product of the syrup making.
Okay.
That sounds interesting.
Interesting.
It's similar to the syrup, but not as intense.
Okay. Here we go.
All right.
Now, this is the soft Belgian candy sugar.
Okay.
And,
It's open.
okay.
James winces when I do this.
Yeah. You're just doing that right next to my star microphone. This is, that's how I make my living. Oh, and this again has nice carbonation.
It's strange. I mean, really, the carbonation seems to be varying.
Huh.
I had the most. I'm not sure if I just did a bad job figuring out my final volumes or what, but this is, I think, the most carbonated of all.
So are you drinking along with us, Mike?
Oh yeah.
And you get a full beer for every third of a beer we get.
Well, I'm only drinking about a third of each one, so
okay.
I'm keeping it even.
I really like the softness of the mouthfeel of this. It's like soft sugar, and it tastes soft to me.
Well, I think like the last one, it seems to be more soft, like you're saying, but I think it's the body, and it may be that it is slightly different. On the hydrometer readings, it's kind of hard to read sometimes. In those subtle point differences, but this is definitely softer. Like you were saying, but it's just got more unfermented sugars, like the last one, which would lend to it foaming more, having better head retention, which would make it look, again, like it has more carbonation. It may be just the last two have had better head retention and foamed up more, really. Possible. Yeah.
Yeah, I think this one...
It's yummy.
Yeah, it's also very good, but I prefer the previous one over this one. And I think this one to me has a fraction of a degree more of the cidery characteristic. I don't know, maybe not cidery, but fruity. I don't know how to describe it, but
less clean.
Maybe. I don't know. I actually prefer this one. I think it has a richer, fuller taste, more complex, all that.
I think I'd agree. I think this tastes more Belgian to me. I think I may have preferred the previous one, but I think it had a little bit more of a singular sort of unrefined rummy character, whereas this is more, I guess, a mixture. I get different things, when I sip different.
Yeah, I think this one's more complex. than the previous. I mean, we're kind of splitting hairs here, but
yeah. I'm not sure we mentioned this. This one looks rather similar to the last couple, sort of a golden yellow.
Yeah, but still, it's very good. I mean, I would again be very pleased if I got this. If I brewed it myself, I would be very pleased with this result. And as Steve said, yeah, we're splitting hairs, or maybe you said it, Mike. I don't know. Already, my memory is failing me, but I also get the spiciness out of this one, a bit of spiciness. And I wonder if the spiciness can also come from, I'm blaming carbonation for everything, but I'm just wondering if the spiciness can also come from the carbonation. A little bit of a bite, maybe?
Yeah.
Well, carbonation will tend to make something taste a little more sour. CO2 is acidic by nature, so it'll tend to leave a more tart finish than a flat beer would. But, it's very subtle. I don't know that's, But then maybe that subtle change in pH that you're detecting is helping shape that spiciness or something, the way everything plays on each other.
Are there any flavors that we can name in this, or can we help the listeners to envision what we're tasting? This is generally what we don't do. We should have sent a 6-pack to Craft Beer Radio as well, so that they could get in there because this is their specialty. But
I get some black pepper out of this. When you were saying spice, I was trying to decide, well, what spice is it that I taste? And at the end, so I've swallowed, and now I'm getting that kind of aftertaste, and I get a little black pepper. So what do you think? Because I was thinking, like, when you say spice, that could mean cinnamon, that could mean allspice, that could mean all kinds of things. So to me, what I'm tasting a little black or white pepper.
I can see that. Very nice, though.
Yeah, this is a great beer.
Yeah. I mean, when I say that I prefer the previous one, it's just a fraction of a degree of preference.
Yeah. Well, actually, I'm going to break with all of y'all. I prefer the second beer that we had so far. I really like that beer a lot. I can't even tell you why now, but I just remember that I thought it was just really refreshing and had a great flavor. And I like these a lot too. But these seem maybe it's just the mood I'm in. These seem heavier and kind of like I need to be in front of a fire and watching the Christmas tree lights and that kind of thing. And the other one just appealed to me a little bit more. That second beer. So,
yeah,
the Amber Candy Rock.
Yeah.
And I would probably go the other way. I would say that this is the kind of mouthfeel that I enjoy, like a big IPA or something. I like to feel that thick, pull it across my tongue, like I have to kind of pull it out of the glass. I like a big, full beer, and this to me is more what I would want.
Where are you leaning, Mike?
I think I like the third one, the Muscovado. I think that just sort of had the most original character to it. Whereas this one, to me, I guess just sort of tastes middle of the road. It's good, but there's nothing too distinct about it. No real big flavors to pull out of it. Nothing to set it apart.
Andy's itching to go to get the next one.
I can't wait to try the next one. I know it's going to be even more intense than this one. So,
well, the next one I think is my personal favorite. So I don't think you'll be let down. The next one is the dark candy syrup, sort of the new thing in homebrewing Belgians that everyone seems to be raving about.
Okay.
Cool. All right. Okay, now this is the go Steve.
Now I'm afraid. I'm going to ruin his 5060 microphone or 4080 or whatever it is.
I've spooked him.
You have spooked me. I've been spooked.
Okay, this is the kind of the hot new product, I guess, in the sugars out there now. This is the dark candy with an I syrup, and boy, it's considerably darker than what we've seen before. And this is something that you're stocking in your store now.
Yeah,
right,
it
Andy?
sure is, and I think the reason we stocked it was because we heard about it on your show, and somebody called us and said, hey, the stuff that was featured on James's show, I'm carrying that now. You want to carry it in your store? And, of course, we said, well, yeah, we do. So
I am shaping the face of homebrew today.
Well, You're shaping something.
Yeah.
Hey, Michael, this is a beautiful beer. This is lovely.
Yeah.
The color is great. I mean, it's a little hazy, but that's okay. It's just really pretty.
It's got a good head on it. And Steve, be sure to get in front of the mic as well.
Compared to that other
What are
one,
you
it's
doing?
crystal clear. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, it's very clear.
Yeah.
And Steve, don't be afraid to get right in front of the mic.
I thought I was.
Yeah,
Not that
you gotta
close.
wipe the condensation on the outside of the glass off so that they all look hazy when they have the condensation on the outside of the
That's what I
glass.
was seeing.
Steve's glasses are fogging up for some reason. I don't know. So this is the dark candy with an I syrup, and this was mentioned in Blam, Brew Like a Monk. So now I'm interested. I haven't even smelled it yet, so
Yeah,
it smells good.
The first time I heard about it was when you interviewed Stan Hieronymus on the show. And,
Oh, wow.
I love this.
Oh, wow.
This is way good.
Yeah.
Wow.
A lot more going on. I mean, and all that, now that we've had those other ones, all that going on is the sugar.
Oh, my. Okay.
Yeah. That's tasty.
There's a bunch of toffee candy flavors in here. If you like, things like toffee and stuff like that, these flavors will appeal to you because it's that's what's in there. It's that
Yep.
soft butter candy kind of.
It's like
taste.
a sugar daddy.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
A caramel or something.
Oh, that is so good.
Yeah.
But,
Okay.
when you taste that syrup, when you taste the Belgian candy syrup that he used in this, a lot of people describe it as brown sugar tasting instead of molasses tasting.
Yeah,
so it doesn't have
what I
that
picked
sharp
up.
molasses character. It has more of a soft brown sugar kind of character.
That's exactly what I said, brown sugar. How
And
can you dance so
amazingly,
good?
This is apparently just caramelized sugar. It's completely purified white beet sugar that they caramelize down and dip the string into to make the rock candy sugar, and then spin it to get the soft candy sugar. And this is sort of all the impurities that are left after that. So it's really concentrated.
Wow.
So this is
kryptonite.
this is the waste product that they've now all of a sudden found that they can sell for $8 a jar.
Wow.
It's great.
That is really good. It has again, we must describe rather than just enjoy.
Yeah, sure.
This is, if you were to take a spoon and dip it in the brown sugar bag and eat it, it would be a lot like this. Obviously not 100% that, because it's a beer and it doesn't taste all the way like that, but
And it's not nearly as sweet as that would be.
right.
Well, like I said, it reminds me, if you remember from your childhood eating sugar daddies or sugar babies, at the movies, this is what this tastes like to me, except in a beer.
Wow. Okay, by far my favorite. I mean,
Yeah, it's hands down.
Certainly worth the $8 for the little tiny bottle of it, I think.
well, it's not a tiny bottle.
Well,
it's
one beer is worth, I guess.
Oh, well, yeah.
One batch worth. So based on this beer we're drinking here, this would be one of those to 5 gallons. The jar that it comes in, 8 ounces.
I'm trying to remember. So this was the equivalent of a 5-gallon batch. This would be 1 pound of it. And I know those are 500 milliliter containers. I don't remember if they're it's about a pound. Maybe they're a little more than a pound.
Okay.
So on the order of one of those per batch.
Well, I would pay even $16 per 5-gallon batch for this kind of complex.
I've also heard reports that the flavor gets more intense if you add it earlier in the boil, as opposed to, you often think flavorings, close to the end. I guess if it's boiled in there, the caramelization, I'm not sure if it continues or it intensifies the flavors.
Well, that's exactly the opposite of I would have played off of from experience and everything. I would have said if you want to get as much of the flavor out of it, I would say put it in right at the very end, almost at heat off, just enough to dissolve it. But that's interesting. I can see how maybe that it would continue to kind of caramelize and kind of meld with the rest of the malt in your batch. But, that's interesting. I'd like to try that.
That there would be an interesting experiment right there. Split the batch and add half the bottle at the beginning to half and half the bottle at the end.
So are you volunteering for another experiment, Mike?
You go, man.
I need to branch out away from the Belgian candy sugar, I think.
We're wanting you to do another one of these. We enjoyed the hop experiment so much, and we're enjoying this one so much. We're just pleading you to do something else.
Yeah, we're looking forward to that English hop experiment you were threatening us with last time.
But Chris Colby, I believe it was Chris, in the interview that I did with him on the American Pilsner show, he said that you boil, don't be afraid to boil a light-colored wort for 90 minutes.
Yeah.
You know, usually you say you don't want to boil for an extended period of time because you're afraid of the Maillard reaction, the darkening effect. Mm-hmm. But he said that when you have a light-colored wort, it doesn't darken as quickly as if you have a dark-colored wort. In other words, the darkening stuff, if you've got dark stuff in there, it darkens more quickly. So maybe if you have this dark candy sugar in there, if you boil it for a little longer, maybe it picks up more of the darkened caramely reactions from the boil.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's very possible. When you think about it, I mean, the real Belgian doubles that are often supposedly colored with just this dark syrup, I mean, I think are considerably darker than what my beer is. And my beer is sort of I'm not sure I want to call it a light brown or a dark amber, but it's certainly not brown like or dark brown like many Belgian doubles are.
Well, we'll have to refer from memory because it's all gone here. But it wasn't as dark as, say, a double.
No.
Yeah.
Wow.
I was in Kansas City a few weeks ago and had the opportunity to drink a Castile. I don't drink a lot of Belgian beer, but this restaurant had 3 beers, and they were all Belgians, and they ordered a Castile, and it was very much like this. That beer was a little bit bigger. By bigger, I mean it was more alcoholic. It was just more of it. But this reminds me a whole bunch of that particular beer.
Mm.
Well, and apparently the guy who's importing these sugars, I mean, this is actually the exact same sugar that many Belgian brewers use. It's not, a copy or something similar. It's, the same company making all of it.
Well, this is a terrific beer, Michael. You should be very proud of yourself with this.
Yeah, that was wonderful. So now, are we to the last one already?
Well,
yeah,
we have the bonus IPA.
Well, that's for after.
Oh.
That's for afters.
The listeners don't get to share that with us.
This is you guys' bonus for coming out here.
Now,
I thought it was all these delicious Belgians we're drinking.
Well, that too. Now we go to Mike's homemade caramel. Is it caramel or caramel?
I say caramel, but I believe some other people would feel the exact opposite.
I say caramel.
Caramel.
Okay. I think it's a southern thing.
Caramel or caramel?
I think southern people, more southern, I think south you say caramel. I think north you say caramel.
Well, I do know that in the Groucho Marx
I'm in
movie...
Virginia now, so I guess I can go caramel.
Across the Mason-Dixon line.
And once you go caramel... You never go back. So okay. All right. Andy, go to the fridge.
To new levels.
Okay, so Mike, tell us the process on going through the making the homemade caramel.
Sure. So this is a little different than sort of the standard white sugar and water technique that I've done before for cooking. This was just 1 container of Karo corn syrup, which is just a mixture of fructose and glucose, with, I believe, 9 grams of diammonium phosphate. You can also use, I believe it's ammonium phosphorus, or something. It's I believe, used as a leavener in Middle Eastern baking. But this was, I had this on hand for yeast nutrients, that we use here. And the strange thing about making this is I'm used to caramel, not changing color until about 330, 340 degrees. And this started to change right around 220, 230. I believe this only went up to about 270 degrees, and it was real dark. I mean, I was concerned I was going to burn it. There are a couple sort of theories I've been talking to people on beer message boards and trying to figure out, what exactly is going on here. And one theory is that a Maillard reaction, the free nitrogen you're adding with the diammonium phosphate, is reacting with the sugars, and that's really what's making the darkness. It's not really caramelization. And the other thought being that there's fructose in this, and fructose caramelizes at about 230 degrees, whereas sucrose and glucose and most of the other ones are 320 or above. So those are sort of the two conflicting ideas about exactly why this sugar turns so dark.
Well, the beer is the darkest, I think, of all the beers.
Yeah, for sure. And there's a lot of body in this beer.
Yeah. This is a terrific beer. I think the other beer had more body. You don't. Shake your head.
No. I think this one has the most body in it.
Okay.
And you're right. This one had a finishing gravity 9 points higher than all the other ones.
Oh, my gosh.
This one, essentially, there were 9 points of sugar added to all of them, and this caramel did not ferment whatsoever.
Really?
By my measurement.
That's weird.
Huh.
Now, did you say earlier this was something from Stan Hieronymus or from that book?
This is actually, it's in Brew Like a Monk, but he credits the recipe for the caramel to Randy Mosher.
Okay. Huh.
And I've got both books here if you want to look at them.
Oh, no, I believe him. I believe that, too. No, I just didn't know about the thing, about the recipe and the use of the diammonium. Is it diammonium phosphate?
Yeah. It's page 168 of your Brew Like a Monk book, and it's page, let's see, what page is it? 199 or 198 of Radical Brewing.
Yeah, I'm wondering, is this a standard like candy making technique for getting caramel? I don't know if I've ever heard that. Where do they?
The theory behind this, according to I believe Randy Mosher, is that this is a class 4 caramel, which is stable at beer making temperatures and pH levels.
Ah.
And I'm not sure what would happen if you used a different class of caramel, if it would break down or it would make unpleasant flavors at a low pH. I don't know.
Interesting.
It's also a delicious beer.
Yeah, it is.
Yes, no, it's very good. And you can definitely smell the caramel in it.
Yeah, you really can. This is just as good as it gets. And, I mean, it's very different from the previous beer. And the other thing that I've noticed is that as the beers have gotten bigger, the spice notes have gone away.
Yeah, I would agree. You say it's as good as it gets. Would you prefer this to the previous beer?
Depends on which one's open at the time. And yes, I am running for office.
This is a delicious beer. The other one had some interesting flavor notes that were easy to detect and easy to kind of pull out, whereas this is more like you were saying on the other one. It's a soft kind of amalgam of this kind of sweet toffee and caramel-like flavors. I could see how one person would want that kind of more singular or having that identifiable pieces they could pick out. But this is so rich and full, and it adds to the maltiness of it, that caramel. It makes it really easy to drink.
Yeah.
Is it sweeter because it's got the unfermentables in there?
I definitely perceive much more sweetness. Well, I don't want people to get the wrong idea. It's not sticky sweet, but it definitely has a nice sweet finish to it. It's it's got a nice residual sugars left in it.
Mm-hmm. I think it finishes very cleanly, and boy, you can just drink a whole bunch of this until you couldn't anymore.
Wow.
And so in September, I actually brewed up a batch of dark, strong Belgian ale. I used a combination. I went with mostly the remainder of my bottle of the dark candy syrup, but I also had a little bit of this caramel left over, so I threw in a couple of ounces. I didn't want to.
Did you send that?
I also thought a couple ounces of this in there would really add some complexity to the sugar profile and hopefully improve it. And it's still aging right now, but
we would be glad to sample that for you, Mike, if you wanted to get a third or fourth or fifth opinion on that.
I'll see. I think I may only have one bottle left.
That would do.
I bought about 4 bottles of it. And the rest got thrown in with some Brettanomyces and cherries and some bourbon-soaked oak. So,
That too.
so that'll be tasty in about 6 months or so. I hope.
My Lord.
You're a wild man.
I don't want to take credit for the idea. It's there's a brewery in California called Pizza Port.
Oh yeah.
And they make a beer that's essentially a dark Belgian strong with cherries, Brett, and bourbon.
Yeah. Yeah. One day we will make the pilgrimage to the Russian River and Pizza Port and all those wonderful California breweries that Rick Sellers is so bold about bragging about on Pacific Brew News Radio.
I want to ask a question. I don't know a lot about Belgian beers, so this is kind of for the group. And what I want to know is, when we started out, the first couple of beers we drank were very light in color. So I would describe them in terms visually as a blonde ale, just visually, forget taste. The last couple of beers we've had have been quite brown. The only difference has been the sugar. What makes a Belgian brown? What makes a Belgian blonde? That's my question. What's the difference? In other words, is it just the sugar, or are there malts involved?
I know from Ring Blam, for example, that what's lettering in there, all their beers, they use the same grist. It's just a percentage of pale malt and a percentage of Pilsner malt. And the only difference is the starting gravity and the sugar they use. So their light beer is blonde and is, a Belgian, I believe, single. And their two darkers are a double and a quadruple. And the only difference is that those two have the dark candy syrup in them.
And then Peter Brookart would be offended that you would even try to categorize the beers.
Well, I think what happened, though, is those probably, the Belgians invented the styles, and we've only, named them and tried to copy them.
Yeah, that's Peter Brookart from New Belgians. That's his philosophy. He makes the beer. He calls it art. 10 minutes of art, and it's up to you to figure out where to what pigeonhole to put it in.
Well, except he makes a beer called I think the name of the beer is a triple. So he's not exactly shying away from those traditional labels.
That's his marketing department.
Yeah.
And which reminds me, I chilled in my refrigerator downstairs. I have a bottle of La Folie.
Yum.
So and we also have a bottle of an IPA that you sent along as a bonus beer to the 6 beers that we've just tasted. Mike, tell us about the IPA.
Well, this is something I've sort of been interested in for a while is getting beers off the second runnings from big beers. So I made, I guess, a pseudo clone of Pliny the Elder from Russian River, except I made a couple more % alcohol, and there was about 4 or 5 gallons of runoff left over from that would be about 1060. So I threw in a little bit of Carafa Special 2, which is just a German, very dark, but it doesn't have a husk. So it's very smooth, and it just almost basically contributes color. So I mixed that in, and I ran off a second batch of wort. I boiled that for about 60 minutes without any hops. And then for the last half an hour, essentially I just took all the leftover American hops I had in the freezer last summer. I think it ended up being about half a pound of Centennial and Columbus and Amarillo and Simcoe and Cascade and just sort of all the big American hops. And threw about an ounce in every 5 minutes for the last half an hour.
Oh my Lord!
And my hope was to get a IPA that looked black like a stout, but if your eyes were closed and you weren't told what it was, it would just taste like a regular IPA. And there's a little bit of roast to it, but I think it's pretty close to just being a standard IPA flavor.
Well, it's all we could do to restrain Andy from running to the refrigerator right now. So
he's clawed all the soundproofing off the door.
All the Sonex tile is gone from the walls, and he's put the headphones. He's gone.
He's gone.
He's out of the
and
studio.
He's made a break for it.
Yeah. So Mike, I can't thank you enough for the experience. This has just been wonderful. These beers, I would be, again, as with the hop experiment, I would be proud to to have brewed any of these beers.
Any of them.
Probably, except the one with white sugar.
Well, but even then I would have been happy.
Even that was a very drinkable beer. I mean, we're really splitting some hairs here.
Yeah.
I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you for helping us out again, and I hope that
my pleasure.
And I hope that the listeners can get something from this as well. And
from our rambling descriptions.
Well, I was going to say that I know very little about Belgian beers, and I have learned a lot about them tonight. I mean, I feel like I have. I know a lot more than I did before I walked into this studio, and I didn't really understand the differences that different sugars make. I really just had no clue. So this has been a big eye opener for me, and very valuable. Yeah,
and the Belgians that I made this past summer, I just used dextrose, and they turned out really well. I mean, and Mike, you had my Belgian blonde, and
yeah, it was a great beer.
I thought it was okay, and but I think it would have been so much better with a more interesting sugar.
Yeah, well, to me, it points out how useless that rock candy is. It's pretty much the same as table sugar, so I don't.
Yeah.
I would not encourage people to use it in the future. But, well, let's just say after I sell out what I
have. Exactly. Except for the stock you have left in your store.
I am a businessman, after all.
Well, Mike, again, we really appreciate your help, and we look forward to the next one.
I'll certainly let you know when I get working on something else.
You are the man. Thank you, Michael Tonsmeire.
Thank you, James.
Well, we got a little giddy there at the end, didn't we? Thanks very much again to Mike Tonsmeire for conducting the experiment and sending the beers. And, of course, the IPA, it was wonderful, too. So there you go. You can see a picture that Mike took of the beers and the labels of which was which to go along with the picture on basicbrewingradio.com. Just look at the description of this week's episode. And thanks to Steve and Andy for joining us again. And you can visit Andy's homebrew shop at thehomebrewery.com. That's thehomebrewery.com. And next week, I just may take the week off. Why not? I hope you have a fun and safe New Year's celebration. And I'll talk to you again in 2007. If you have brewing questions, show suggestions, or just want to say hey, write to james@basicbrewing.com, or just fill out the contact form on basicbrewing.com. And please don't forget to tell us where you're from. And while you're on our site, you can check out our online shop, where you can find great pricing on our DVDs and a combo deal on the DVDs to save you even more. In Basic Brewing Introduction to Extract Home Brewing, we walk you through the extract brewing process step by step from boiling to bottling. And in Basic Brewing Stepping into All Grain, we take you through the all grain process from milling your grain to collecting your wort in a fun, nonlinear fashion. You can see a listing of the fine folks across the country who sell our DVDs on basicbrewing.com. And if there isn't a vendor in your area, you can order it from us online, and we'll box it up for you ourselves. And also be sure to look for our new Brewer's Logbook that's only available on our website at this point. Thanks to everybody who's been clicking on our Amazon.com link and doing their holiday shopping. Thanks a lot. Appreciate that. And that's that. That's all until next week or the week after. Until then, thanks for listening. I'm James Spencer. Production help for Basic Brewing Radio and our website is provided by our buddy Kelly Dotson, who also designed our logo. Basic Brewing Radio is a production of Active Voicing. We'll talk to you next time. So long. Happy New Year.